All right, everybody, welcome to the Kickstarter Creator Hangouts. My name is Stephanie Pereira. I'm joining you here today from Kickstarter HQ in Brooklyn. And our guest today is Tara Tiger Brown. She is joining us from Los Angeles, from her really nice home office. Enjoy the artwork in the background, everyone, and the other really fun things going on. So the plan for today is we will be talking with Tara for the next 30 minutes. She is a wonderful person involved in many, 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 many things. Her bio is on the screen, so I'm not going to read it out to you. So check it out if you haven't recently. Tara is an expert in things like starting community-focused spaces for learning new skills, collaborating with local libraries, and interest-driven youth education. So we're going to focus the conversation on Tara's experience in that space. And then, of course, she's run a couple of very successful Kickstarter projects with us. One was to launch the LA Makerspace. And then the more recent one was to initiate a series, an education series with libraries in Los Angeles, librarians in Los Angeles. So we're excited to hear about all of that and more. I'm going to kick this conversation off with a couple questions for Tara, but the whole point of this is for you guys to fire your questions at Tara. We're excited to hear from you. So you can do that either here on the Google Plus page, or you can do it via Twitter. We are at Kickstarter Tips. So if you want to send us a question there, please do at Kickstarter Tips. All right, so hi, Tara.
Hello.
Nice to have you here today.
Thank you, so exciting.
Yeah. So I would love to just start. You're involved, as I sort of alluded to, your bio is amazing. You're involved in so many incredible things. I'd just love to hear a little bit from you about what is it that you're working on right now, and that you're like most excited about.
Okay, well, there's three things that I'm super excited about that I'm actively working on right now. Always the LA Makerspace, really excited about that. We are the primary STEAM service provider for LA Public Library, and they have like 73 branches. And so right now we're working on programming all the workshops that we're going to be running over the next year. And we're now expanding beyond workshops for kids to adults and seniors. So, looking at workforce development, things like that. So we're really excited about that. I have my startup KitHub, which actually was born from really the workshops we do at the Makerspace require a lot of materials and resources, and we kept getting asked, hey, how do I do this stuff at home or in the classroom? So my co-founder Luce and I, she runs DIY Girls, were like, hey, we should box up these workshops and send them out into the world. So we have a couple of kits that we're just launching right now, so I can talk about that afterwards. And then the third thing is I've been working with Dr. Mimi Ito for like 4 years out of the DML Research Hub at UC Irvine around this idea of interest-driven learning and mentorship, connected learning. And so after all this time, we're finally, came to this awesome conclusion that we should run online camps for kids. So on Monday, Summer of Minecraft launches for 4 weeks with kids around the world learning how to play Minecraft and code in Minecraft.
That is so very cool. And for those of you who are just hearing Dr. Mimi Ito's name for the first time, do check her writing out and her research out. She's doing really good stuff, as is the DML Lab and obviously Tara. So I am selfishly going to drive this conversation to the work you're doing with libraries. I think it's super interesting. I know libraries are at a critical moment and wondering and how they can grow and continue to be some of the most important resources that our communities have. And I think the work you're doing with them as the STEAM provider is awesome. And it was really cool that you did a Kickstarter project to support that work. So I'd love if you talk a little bit more about the genesis of how you made that happen, and what that collaboration looks like.
Well, going back to my work with Mimi, through Digital Media Learning Research Hub and the MacArthur Foundation, they started funding libraries and as becoming these learning hubs. So beyond, libraries being a place to check out books, they realized that libraries had to reinvent themselves. And so what we started seeing pop up across the US and even around the world, where people using libraries as a place to actually learn new skills. So a lot of times you'll see you can go to do workshops at libraries. Here in LA, people learn how to become citizens here. They take workshops in that. So there's a lot of great initiatives. And then there was a couple of spaces who were taking areas in the library and repurposing them for people to do DIY stuff, like how do I do woodworking or something like 3D printing. So here in LA, I approached the LA Public Library and said, hey, look what's going on. Are you guys ready to transform some of the branches? And then, over a series of conversations, we were able to come to an agreement where we could work with them on running these different workshops at the branches. And it started small, a few branches, and our goal is more than 40 branches this year, and ultimately all of the branches.
Incredible, incredible. So I think to scale so quickly and so fast is really important, and obviously involves a lot of community involvement and community support. Can you talk a little bit on the flip side, though? Of course, we've found that it's unlocking the key on how to ignite that enthusiasm, and doing that on Kickstarter is not the easiest thing to figure out. And I've noticed you did it with the LA Makerspace project, and you did it with the library project. So I would love if you could share some insights into how you did that.
With the first Kickstarter campaign, that really, we identified that, kids didn't have enough opportunities to learn about science, technology, engineering, math, and parents started getting concerned. My son was born in 2010, right after my husband started Crashspace, the first hackerspace in LA. And so all of my friends were like, you need to figure out where your kid's going to go to school. It's really important. I'm like, he's not even born yet, And so that's when I found out that we were losing shop classes in our schools, and kids are not learning how to make anything, right? So, kids are becoming, more consumers as opposed to creators. And this is a major concern for me. When I grew up, I love shop class, woodwork, metalwork and stuff. And I couldn't imagine not knowing actually how to make something with my hands. So, and I just discovered there's other people that had these same concerns as me. And so it's just, it started with a blog post, really. Does anybody else think, kids should learn how to make stuff? Yeah. And it had a really great response. And we just started hosting meetups and stuff around LA and sort of building the community that way. So by the time, I started thinking about a Kickstarter was actually when I met you at MozFest in London, when you held a workshop there. And I thought, this is how we can get the word out, to way more people than just kind of one-off meetup groups, right? It's amplifying our message and seeing, if other people, want to back this. So not just in LA, but, around the world, essentially. So, I think that you've got to start somewhere, start with the people and the community that you're in, where you really want to make a difference. And then, sometimes you might find that it just grows from there.
Yeah, I think that's such important advice. I'm going to fire one more question your way, but before I do, I want to remind those of you watching this Hangout, please send us your questions. We'd love to hear from you. What would you like to know from Tara? She's founded a Makerspace. She's an expert in STEAM. She's thinking about interest-driven youth education. She's done 2 incredible Kickstarter projects where she's activated huge communities to participate in making these dreams happen. So lots of wisdom here. Fire your questions our way, either here on Google+, or you can do it on Twitter at Kickstarter Tips. So just leading off that question I just asked you, one thing I love about both projects that you ran, neither of them feel needy or forlorn or guys, we have to do this. They feel exciting and they feel creative and they feel inspiring. And I look at them and I actually feel like I'm learning something. So can you give us some insights into that? Because I think where a lot of people go wrong is that they kind of lead with the wrong foot. So you always seem to lead with the right foot here.
Well, I mean, I think that the way that we approached it was that, first of all, we really believed this thing that we were trying to create, and we knew that other people believed that too before we ever started the Kickstarter campaign. So it wasn't like we started with Kickstarter. We started way before we even thought about that campaign happening.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, just solid advice anyways, do your pre-launch before you start your Kickstarter campaign, sort of garner interest, etc. And, it wasn't something that, was just that one-off. This is something that is a long-term initiative that we want to be a part of. So that's part, we did the first Kickstarter, and then we did the second one because it was just like, hey guys, we're still here, seeing if, there's more community that we can get involved, because, Makerspaces and the DIY movement, has actually changed a lot, in the last couple of years. People have become more known. So we just thought, this is a great way to reach out to the community again. And I just, I think that you have to really listen to the community when they're providing comments to you about your project. There's been a couple of Kickstarter campaigns that I really, really wanted them to get funded, but I could kind of see there was a few things like best practices that they weren't following. And I would, send them what I thought were nice notes, like, hey, here's some tips, take it or leave it. And I never heard anything back, you know? And so, I think that, and this is the same advice I've gotten from people who, are trying to build their Instagram community or Twitter. It doesn't really matter. Like when your community building, listen to the people that care about what it is that you're working on, and be prepared to make slight adjustments, because what, just like with a tech startup, this is, in some ways your minimum viable product, you're testing the waters, you're experimenting, you kind of have to go with, a little bit around what the community is expecting too.
Yeah, totally. That's such good advice. So let's get some of those best practices out into the air now. Maybe some of the people listening today will take your advice. So what are some best practices that you would advise?
Well, I mean, I can say, for the stuff that we've done, I think showing examples of what people can expect around, what you're trying to build. So with our first Kickstarter campaign, we'd already, done a series of workshops and established that we were experts in what we were doing, or at least attempting to be experts, and that, we were trustworthy, that we could deliver on what it was. And I think that you can prove all those things through, like I said, examples like photos, testimonials, a video of, what's going on in your community. And then, also having the community participate in what you're doing, right? Like it's not a one-man or one-woman show when you're running these Kickstarter campaigns, especially if it's community driven. Bring the community in to help you run that Kickstarter campaign. And then also, I think when you're looking at the rewards, I think some of the best advice you gave me, Stephanie, was pick rewards that are related to the campaign that you're running. So, you always hear people saying, oh, I have to give t-shirts out. And you said, think about that for a second. It's not just getting the t-shirts. You actually have to pay for postage and you have to mail them. Do you really think that that reward is something that people care about? What I was really surprised about, when we've run our campaigns, it was, even though we're, physically located in LA, it wasn't just Angelenos that were backing our campaign. We had people across the US backing it. And the reason was because, it was something that they could learn from. We had people who were interested in starting a space, in New York. And so they thought if they could follow along and support it, then, they're part of that community building that happens. And then we can support them, when they're ready to launch their space too. The Makerspace community isn't just about that physical space that you have. It's this network that you have access to, around the world. And so it's really like tapping into that and asking for support. And also I think that, you have to be realistic. I think like that part in the Kickstarter campaign where you're like, what are your risks? Like, be honest about it, right? Say, look, I am really worried about this thing, because sometimes what you'll find is that people will reach out and help you with that risk or that challenge that you're concerned about. And they're like become like your biggest advocates and fans, because they're like, everybody wants to like help and solve problems, right? So, for the most part, they're like, I'm smart, I can totally help with this. So it's so advantageous. So, we've experienced that as well.
That's really great. I love that. So I think one thing that you just sort of touched on, and I would love for you to get a little more into briefly, guys, send us your questions. We're here, Google Plus, or on Twitter @Kickstarter Tips. I'm just going to keep asking Tara questions in the meantime. So I think you just said a bunch of interesting stuff. I'm going to pull out the rewards bit because this is a community project. You are based in Los Angeles. This is about being physically located there, but you did have backers from all over the place. One thing that, you know, whenever I'm sort of helping people think through their projects, it's like, well, what if I'm not making a product? What do I offer as a reward? You did figure out, I think, an interesting model. So maybe talk about some of the rewards that you offered, stuff that was pretty successful, and particularly things that maybe drew people from outside your community in.
Yeah, sure. Well, for the first Kickstarter, the main rewards were around being able to access the space or memberships to the space. So, I mean, that was the thing. People wanted a makerspace. They wanted to go. And so this was, you know, their way of having a space and being able to have access to resources. And, you know, we were trying to outfit the space with, you know, 3D printers and laser cutters and stuff. So in a way, it wasn't just about, you know, it being the maker spaces. It was their stuff that they were funding to use, right? So it's sort of like joint ownership, I guess, in a way. And then, you know, some people just wanted to, you know, get accolades. So we drew this like laser shark on the wall, and, you know, you put to thank everybody's name inside the laser shark. And, you know, we actually made a little laser out of EL wire. You know, so like just having people having their name up there and just being, you know, reminded that they're a part of this is, you know, that was good enough for them too. But, you know, like for the most part, people didn't really expect any physical thing, you know, like they didn't really care about getting a t-shirt or stickers or whatever. They just thought it was a really good project that they wanted to back. So I feel like sometimes people think they have, you know, oh, I have to give you something tangible, you know, when you're doing something like a community, but like you're building the community. That's what they get out of it, right? Like that's the reward. In terms of like the people outside of LA, they, you know, a lot of them were actually, you know, giving their memberships to people in LA. So we had an opportunity to bring teens in from the LA Public Library and Central Library to come to the space because they're like, hey, just use my membership. It's cool. You know, I'm happy to let you use it. Or people that would just show up in LA, sometimes they would come into the space. But yeah, it was just, I think it was, they just liked the idea and they wanted to see more of it.
Yeah, and that's so important. I think, you know, I talk to so many people in the nonprofit space and they worry about this, like this t-shirt thing, you know, like, oh, but I have to make all this stuff. But I do think that what we have seen, especially as the space has matured, is that people want to be a part of making things happen. That's really like the big idea here. Yeah. Another call for questions, Google Plus or Twitter. We're taking questions for Tara, who's the founder of LA Makerspace, and working on a number of other projects, including one she's launching Monday, which is an online camp. Is it in Minecraft? Like, is the camp?
Yeah, the camp is being run, it's all in game, right? So all the communications with the camp counselors, everything happens in Minecraft.
That's so crazy. Are there other camps and games in Minecraft?
Yeah, like, well, typically what you find is that, you know, there's camps you actually go to, you know, and so you go and you hang out with other kids. We did this with the Makerspace a couple years ago. This is kind of where the idea came from, was we held an in-person Minecraft camp. So, you know, kids came with their computers and they learned how to, you know, get better at playing the game or coding. So this has been the challenge for us, is thinking about how do you run a camp virtually, right? Like with kids around the world with different time zones and all this stuff. So it's been a fun process figuring it out. We have like 50 camp counselors that are online at all different times of the day. And they're game designers actually for the most part. So the kids will learn about game design or how to code. So yeah, we'll see what happens on Monday. I think it's been a fun process and we'll just keep learning.
That's really cool. So that's called Connected Camps, right?
Yeah, that's Connected Camps and it's Summer of Minecraft.
Summer of Minecraft, cool. So we have a question from Alan Kelly. Hi, Alan. Alan wants to know, as a social project, did you have to register as a charity or a nonprofit?
Well, LA Makerspace is 501c3, and we had a fiscal sponsor when we actually ran the Kickstarter. but we didn't do the tax, ID stuff when we actually ran that first Kickstarter.
Yeah, and then since then you've become, you incorporated and you ran the second Kickstarter as a 501c3.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you offer people tax deductions on the second one?
I want to give a shout out to Maya Stark, who's the director of the LA Makerspace, because she handled all the ad mail, that stuff around.
Go Maya.
So, I'll have to defer to Maya. If she's online, Maya, can you tweet and tell the answer?
What happened? Maya was at Cinefamily and ran the incredible Cinefamily project, correct?
Actually, that's why she became the director of the LA Makerspace, because she came to a Kickstarter panel that we hosted at LA Makerspace, and she was talking about her Cinefamily success. Somehow Maya got me to buy like back the Cinefamily, which I'd never been to before, and I put like $500 towards like getting my name on a chair, which I still have not seen. Like magic around running her Kickstarter campaign. So I was like, I need her.
Yeah, that was a good move, Tara. Everyone, you should check out, for those of you interested in nonprofits and socially minded stuff, creative projects. Cinefamily is another LA-based organization that did an incredibly successful Kickstarter project back around the same time as the LA Makerspace one. And you've since gotten the wisdom of Maya on your side.
Yeah, Maya's Starks on it on Twitter, if you guys want to ask her questions.
I think this is great. I'm curious to see if anyone has any other questions for Tara. She knows a lot.
I have a lot of stuff in my brain, so bring it on.
She's so much in her brain. I will keep asking you questions in the meantime.
Okay. Cool.
So let's just sort of continue on this thread. Before you ever came to Kickstarter, you did the work of asking the right questions, figuring out who would be excited about this, starting to build that community. And then when you launch those projects, with communities kind of in place, which is so key. So many people launch and then hope to meet people.
Yeah.
You sort of did that groundwork, which, as you said, is true for lots of things, not just Kickstarter.
Yes.
And then you did manage to engage your existing audience and grow your audience through your projects. How have you, we have a question.
Yeah.
And it was related to the one I was about to ask you. So great, thanks, Alan. Do you use the Makerspace events to build audiences for future campaigns? So are you using that space to continue to think about growing your audience, particularly, I guess, for future campaigns?
Well, I think that if it was around something in particular, then yeah, Kickstarter would be a good platform for that. I guess the answer is depends, right? Because as a nonprofit, we have to do a ton of fundraising all the time, so we have, various funders, donations, different events that we do. So I think like the second Kickstarter where, we wanted to train librarians, basically provide professional development. So it's our scale model, right? Like more people we train on how to provide, Makerspace type workshops, like the better it is. That kind of thing I think worked well because, librarians span the globe and a lot of them want to learn new skills. They understand they want to bring in, new activities and ideas into the libraries. So when I think it can benefit, everybody and everybody can learn from that beyond just local LA, then I think that it makes sense for us.
Yeah, I think that's super wise. And again, something I think generally true that a lot of nonprofits ask us about is they're worried about cannibalizing their funding base, right? And I think what you just said about if it makes sense, if it's a fit, if it's energizing for the community and the work that you're doing, you're not in fact cannibalizing, you're actually building on sort of good momentum.
Yeah.
So the question I was going to ask you was how, particularly with folks who are not based in LA, who don't come to the Makerspace, who are not engaged in your regular programming, but you meet them through your Kickstarter campaigns, how have you kept those people engaged, or have you managed to?
Well, I mean, we'll send out updates sometimes, to people that supported us. I mean, I think like the Makerspace and, libraries, it's just like a pretty open, group that communicates a lot with each other in general. Like we talk on Twitter all the time and, Facebook, whatever. So I think that we're lucky that that group likes to share.
Yeah.
Like they're like the open, source version of people.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, I think that those are the kinds of people that you want to work with on this stuff, because they're the ones that are going to share. They're the ones that are going to be excited about what you're doing and want to learn from it and give back and remix and, all that kind of stuff. So, like with the second Kickstarter campaign, we are developing a curriculum that can be shared not only with our librarians here in LA, but everywhere, or any educator that wants to use them. We're just finishing up for one for Scratch, and so like that's the kind of stuff that people will appreciate that you're doing, and then they'll give back. They'll do the pay it forward part, and so those are the people I like to mix with.
Yeah, and I think I think there's a lot of it makes sense the way that you run projects. That makes a lot of sense. And I know that you're getting ready to launch a new project.
Yes.
So I want you to talk about that, but also in the spirit of education, give us some insight into not just the project that you're working on, but also let us know, how are you preparing? How are you getting ready? What are you doing to make sure that it's an awesome, wonderful success all around?
Well, still working on that second bit, but I'll get to that. Yeah, so Luce and I, we're developing a superhero electronics kit with KitHub. And this really came out of the idea that, kids, they learn best if they're learning through their interests. And specifically, around science and technology and engineering, a lot of that can be intimidating to start, or they might not have the right mentors that have, the background to help them. So we thought, kids love superheroes. Superheroes are super popular right now. So it made a lot of sense for us to think about how to develop a project around that. So we're going to be running our Kickstarter starting in September. And so, yeah, we're doing our pre-launch right now. So if you go to kithub.cc/superhero, we have just, a basic landing page up there right now. We'll just keep developing that. So the work that we're doing to prepare, it's very much community development again. So here in LA, we plan to go to a lot of the different comic book shops, and because it's also very education related, the kids are going to learn how to work with electronics and coding. I think it's a really great project for back to school. So a lot of the teachers, parents, et cetera, are already thinking about back to school. So that's something that we'll let them know that we're doing. We'll be doing workshops. So we'll be teaching people in person and even over something like a Google Plus Hangout how they can build like electronic gadget superheroes. And also I should mention that it's a lot of superheroes, you think of them as having like superpower, or whatever, but this is about using your brain. These are like the big brain superheroes, like your Tony Stark that we're talking about right now, right? So that, we think is pretty exciting. So yes, we're starting today with ideas, and we'll just keep developing it until we launch on September 1st.
That's so great. You just said so many incredible things. First of all, I want to point out we're like July 1st. And so that means that you've given yourself July and August to really work on this in the way that you've been talking about. So 2 months of like really solid full-on preparation. You have a landing page up, so presumably to collect email addresses and start building that list and those interest groups. You're thinking about different interest groups to reach out to and to start engaging around the conversation that you've already been having. You've thought about timing as far as back to school and like how that would work with your idea. And then you're also thinking about workshops. So you're already like, you're play testing the idea on many levels.
Yes. Well, I think it's important too, because, we are still experimenting around this, the messaging and all that. So by the time, Kickstarter actually launches, we'll probably have, adjusted some of our initial thinking, you know, based on the feedback we get. So then we know, like, okay, this is really what people want by the time, you know, the Kickstarter's running, and then all they have to do is back us and we're done, right?
It's the dream.
Well, I think, like, for us, like Luce and I have done, you know, with our nonprofits, these, you know, crowdfunding before. This is the first time we've done it with, like, not with our, like, Makerspace and the DIY girls. So I think we're wondering how it's going to be different. So that's a learning curve for us.
Cool. Well, we're just at time. We covered so much. It's been so good to have you here, Tara. Tara is at Tara on Twitter. We are at Kickstarter Tips, and we're also around. Everyone knows how to find us, I hope. But it's been wonderful. This has been another Creator Hangout where we're chatting with creators who we think have lots of interesting things to share. We've gotten some good questions, which is so fun. We're doing this next week with Brian Fargo, game developer, who has a live project right now and has also run a couple of projects with us before. And so next week, Wednesday, same time, same place. We're excited to chat with everybody. Thanks again, Tara. Bye-bye.
Thank you.